All right, it's time for another high school game time league football preview. This time we're taking a look at the San Andreas League. We're at Cajoin High School, Richie, and earlier today, all smiles for the Cowboys as they took their team pictures. But the big question is, Richie, at the end of the San Andreas League season, will Cajoin still be smiling? Will they repeat? Are they still the team to beat in the San Andreas?
Well, I think they are. They went 7-0 last year in league play. This year, they look like they've got some amazing talent on the field. And they've got a tough schedule ahead of them. They've got to play some tough teams. They've got Colton and San G in the league as well. They're no teams you can just turn your head to. And some of the teams at the bottom, too, they've showed some great things last year. But the thing about Cajoin is they're a top team. They've got the talent there. They've got everything in place to repeat as San Andreas champs. Now, the problem is, can they carry that over to the playoffs?
Yeah, because you're right. I mean, they are the defending league champions. You do have them winning again. But if people remember, last year in the playoffs, it was Colton who finished, I think it was third, right, in the San Andreas. Colton came back and bit him in the playoffs, right? Yes,
the two faced off earlier in league contention match. Cajoin took the first game. Colton kind of turned it around in that second half, though. Things started to click for them. They did finish third in league, but they something kind of went together in those playoffs, and they went on to beat Cajoin by 1 point and became CIF champs.
All right, so we've talked about Cajoin. We've touched on Colton, who could be in the mix. San Gorgonio, don't want to count them out, right?
Right. San G, Coach Geringer, doing some great things. They did have a little bit of a downside this offseason, or excuse me, at the end of last season. They lost one of their go-to guys in Brandon Charles. Big part of that spread offense that coach is running down there. He tore his ACL, but he's been rehabbing as of late, got cleared recently for running drills, is hoping to be cleared in early September by the time the season starts for hitting. So we know a lot of people over at San G can't wait for Brandon Charles to get back on the field. They're a great team. They finished second in the league last year. They went on to beat Colton in that regular season game. But I'm putting Colton ahead of San G this year with the amount of talent they've got. They've got some huge offensive linemen, and San G, you know, they've got a tough schedule. So it's going to be hard to determine the order of the top of that San Andreas League. But I'm going to go ahead and put it Cajoin, Colton, San G right now.
Should be a dogfight. That's the way we like it. We heard from head coach Kim Batten here at Cajoin saying every Friday night, there's no nights off. Every team is going to put up a battle. Let's take a look at the rest of the league in the San Andreas. A lot of coaching turnover, a second-year coach at Rialto. Can you talk about maybe the rest of the league? And some of these teams have new head coaches in 2011.
Right, it's going to be a little tough for the teams that are kind of in that lower tier of the division right now, especially when you've got Colton, Cajoin, San G in the same division. Those are some hard teams to compete against. But you know, again, we don't want to quite turn our heads quite yet, but with the coaching changes, Pacific got a new head coach. We know that Royal Valley got a new head coach, so it's going to be a little bit difficult for them to implement their system in one season and say, all right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go out there and we're going to beat Colton, we're going to beat Cajoin, we're going to beat San G. So that's why I think they're going to kind of sit at the bottom for right now. Pacific's going to have a hard time. They actually did not get a win last season at all. That's obviously in league play as well. So with that coaching change, it's going to be really difficult for them to kind of flip it around this year.
All right, let's talk about some of the top players in the San Andreas. I think it really starts here at Cajoin High School when you talk about a two-way star in DeMonte Casey. Talk about him. You spoke with him. What's your feelings as you head into 2011, what Casey can do for the Cowboys here?
Well, there's no doubt he can do some miraculous things. Kid's got 15 career touchdowns, or excuse me, interceptions. That's 5 interceptions last season as well. Works both sides of the ball. Quick, shifty, flashy, can make the moves, make people miss. He's got all facets of the game going right now. He plays special teams as well, big-time returner. So Coach Batten said himself, he's got to do everything he can to make sure this guy gets the ball, and we're looking for him to get the ball this year, and we know he can do some big things when he gets the ball in his hands.
And probably playing for a big-time Division I school on Saturdays next fall. I guess some Pac-10 schools are already hot on his trail and trying to make a bid to land Casey.
Right. Some of the names actually escape me at this time, but he has gotten some.
Washington maybe.
Washington was one of them. He has gotten some great interest from some colleges, and obviously he deserves it. He's put up some tremendous numbers, and everyone knows he's a talent. The hardest part, I think, is going to be for those colleges is what side do you play him on.
That's true. Yeah.
He's got the 15 interceptions on defense, but Coach Batten is finally figuring out how to work this guy on offense, and he does it just as equally impressively, if not better. So the hard part is going to be what side of the ball do you play them on.
All right, so with DeMonte Casey leading the way, Richie Barajas has Cajoin winning the San Andreas League for the second straight season. But we got to remember, Colton snuck up on them last year in the playoffs. Do you think that playoff loss for Cajoin will carry into this season, or do you think they'll erase that memory and Cajoin will just pick up where they left off last year in league play?
Well, the thing about Colton is, how do you say, okay, they become CIF champs, how do we not put them #1?
Yeah.
The thing is, they lost a lot of tremendous talent, and they really relied on that talent, particularly going into the playoffs, and so all of a sudden, how do you fill those shoes? I say you really can't. They had 3 guys that had about 13 to 14 sacks last season, and all of a sudden those guys are no longer there. A big part of that defense, and when you've got to go up against offenses such as Cajoin and Sanji, that's really hard to replace. So right now, that's why I'm kind of sitting Colton in that #2 spot, and believe me, it's no surprise if they become #1, because it's too hard to turn your head against them, and they're going to do just fine at running the ball and finding ways to put numbers on the scoreboard.
All right, so one more time. Near the top, could be musical chairs as the league season progresses, but give me your 1, 2, 3 in the San Andreas one more time.
1, 2, 3, and obviously it can change around. I'm going to go 1 Cajoin, 2 Colton, and 3 Sanji, with that 1, 2 being almost a 1A, 1B type of scenario.
There you have it. Cajoin picked to defend their league championship in the San Andreas. For Richie Barajas, I'm Fernandez for High School Game Time at Cajoin High School in San Bernardino.